It is the gift that keeps on giving. Good morning. Happy Thursday. It's great to be here on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Can you believe it? Did you ever think that we would get 2 days of content out of, and this is at least 2 days of content, out of Rosie freaking O'Donnell putting herself in Ireland, leaving the United States, saying, sayonara, see you later, goodbye. This was pure gold when it came out 2 days ago that she announced on her TikTok that she was going to Ireland because Donald Trump won the election.
She's a real beauty.
I know. And then yesterday, this timing is absolutely perfect. You've got the Irish Prime Minister in the United States, in the White House, talking with President Trump, and a reporter decides he's going to ask Prime Minister Martin about Rosie O'Donnell. Here's what it sounded like.
Ireland is known for very happy, fun-loving people, great attitude, many in this room right now that I've met. Why in the world would you let Rosie O'Donnell move to Ireland? I think she's going to lower your happiness level.
It's true. Thank you. I like that question.
It's true.
Do you know you know who she is? Yeah.
I'm joking.
You better off not knowing.
I mean, this is just hysterical. This is happening yesterday in the White House. Rosie O'Donnell is becoming a punching bag for reporters, Donald Trump, and the Irish Prime Minister. God bless him. He's just sitting there kind of nodding along, being like, I don't really want to get myself into too much trouble here. I have a new resident who has a lot of money, who I will be able to make money from taxing. So I'm just going to sit here and shut my mouth. It was hysterical. And meantime, Rosie's over there. I give her credit for going. For all the celebrity talk on if Trump wins, I'm leaving. She at least left. I actually respect that more than I do all the celebrities who claim they're going to leave and then never do leave. She at least picked up her bags and left. But still, that being said, it's like this story in and of itself is now being talked about at the White House. And Trump, I like that question. Oh, you don't want to know who she is. It's just everything about it is quintessential Donald Trump and this administration. And if you can't get a kick out of it, if you can't laugh about it, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, that's on you because it's just funny. Like, lighten up. It's funny. It's going to be okay. We're all going to make it. Rosie's going to be back here when there's a Democratic president. There is no doubt in my mind. I doubt she sold her place because she needed to put a down payment on her new spot in Ireland. Something tells me that didn't happen. I will be corrected if that is inaccurate information.
You need a vacation place here, right?
Well, that's exactly right. You can't stay there forever. It's gloomy, it's dark, it's cloudy, it's rainy. I looked up the forecast, actually. I was just curious what the forecast was for Dublin over the next few days, and it's what you would expect. Today, 44 cloudy. Tomorrow, 46 and rain. 47, partly cloudy on Saturday. Sunday, partly cloudy, 48. Rain on Monday, rain on Wednesday. It's, 45 to 52 degrees every day, and it's raining every other day. That sounds horrible to me.
I don't know if they have the Trader Joe's that has her favorite pizza snacks either, so she'll probably have to come back stateside.
She may have to do that as well. And I say all this as a proudly half Irish person. But it is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, speaking of gifts that keep on giving, this came out from Politico yesterday. They write here, the Democratic Party's brand is in rough shape in congressional battlegrounds. Nearly 2 months into the second Donald Trump administration, a majority of voters in battleground House districts still believe Democrats in Congress are, quote, more focused on helping other people than people like me. Among independents, just 27% believe Democrats are focused on helping them, compared with 55% who said they're focused on others. Those are horrible numbers. If you don't believe that a political party is looking out for you, that they're only looking out for other people, and that's a 2-to-1 margin, by the way, you've got no shot. Because so much of this in politics is emotional. Yes, we want to look at policy and what works and what doesn't and what fits and what doesn't fit and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. All that's absolutely true. I'm not taking that away for a second. However, a lot of this is how do you make somebody feel? Can you make somebody feel like you care about them? Can you make somebody feel like your ideas and your policies will benefit them? And the reality is right now for the Democratic Party, they don't have that. They just don't. I mean, they have spent so much time catering and doubling down on fringe groups. I mean, I suppose if you are a transgender Hamas sympathizer, you know what? You are right up their alley.
Then and only then would you get a Bill Clinton not feel your pain.
Yeah.
They're so far from those days, right?
Yeah, they are so far from that, man. I mean, they've just doubled down on strange, super niche issues and groups that regular people are out here in America being like, do you care about us or not really? I mean, you try to pretend like you do, but most people aren't feeling that way. It's one of the reasons that Donald Trump and the Republican Party continue to build this bigger tent coalition and the most working class coalition the party has seen, certainly in my lifetime, but going back generations. Another alarming note from this poll that came out and was reported by Politico. Just 44% of those polled in battleground districts. And I thought this might include Kansas's 3rd congressional district. I just don't know if we can call this a battleground district anymore when the Democrat, Sharice Davids, keeps winning by double digits. I don't think we can include this as a swing district. It's not until proven otherwise. But it says here, just 44% of those polled said they think Democrats respect work, while even fewer, 39%, said the party values work. Only 42% said Democrats share their values. A majority, meanwhile, 56%, said Democrats are not looking out for working people. These are horrific numbers. In battleground districts, nearly 1 in 2 polled said they think Democrats respect work. That's it. They don't view them as the party that respects work, that backs out and backs up working people. I mean, these are horrible trends. And it's not going to happen overnight for them to reverse this trend. It's going to take time. And that's because they have become the party of the elites and then the really poor. There's a big swath in between. And I don't even think it's the really poor. I think it's, frankly, poor people who don't want to hustle. If you are looking for that forever handout, then yes, they're your party. But if you're actually trying to climb the ladder, if you're trying to live the American dream and move yourself and your family up to eventually have the next generation live the American dream, they're not the party for you. They're not. Sorry, not sorry. And that is a smaller contingent of people that they are relying on each and every time. Now, Republicans can absolutely blow it. Don't act like this is going to happen forever. If they don't have success the next couple of years, guess what? The American people are going to say, you know what? Fine, we'll give the other guys a shot again. That's how it works. But right now, to be 2 months into this Trump administration and have battleground voters saying, you know what? The Democrats have not really improved their brand. That should be sending alarm bells off for the powers that be on that side of the aisle. 6:14 on a Thursday. Mayor Lucas is going to be here in just over 1 hour on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Coming up, of course, the Kansas City Stars questioning something that you and I view as common sense. What is it? We'll tell you next on KCMO. We're all sitting here in Kansas City, and we know one of the major problems that this town is facing is crime, and more specifically, property crime. Property crime in places like River Market, Westport, the Plaza. You've got big entertainment districts, of course, downtown as well. But you've got major entertainment districts that are dealing with these property crime issues. Crossroads is getting hit a lot too. And you have people who are having their businesses broken into on the regular. What can Kansas City do about it? Well, they actually put together, I thought, a halfway decent plan through the city council that would allow off-duty cops to basically act as security in neighborhoods that have been targeted by break-ins and vandalism. It was a new ordinance that was passed in January and would allow the city manager to recruit for extra security in areas recommended by a task force. So Kansas City could invest up to $1 million for the enhanced security. So it allows cops to make more money off-duty, working security around Kansas City, which they all do anyway, right? I mean, find me a cop that's not doing off-duty. Maybe if you're on the back end and you're approaching retirement and you don't need to, but most cops or a lot of cops are going to end up doing some kind of off-duty. That's just how it works. And that's great. I mean, they'll do it in the private sector, or in this case, they have an opportunity to do it in the public sector. So you would think that, hey, Kansas City actually had a good idea.
Talk about a bombshell.
I know. It's like all the ideas coming out from this city council. Like, I can't knock this one. I won't knock this one. This is a pretty good idea. So, of course, the Kansas City Star questions it, right? Of course, the Kansas City Star runs a headline piece last night on how, well, I don't know about this. The headline, off-duty officers to be dispatched in KC to deter break-ins. Will it work? ? Experts dubious. That's their headline. Who wants to tell them that the world has woken up? Who wants to tell them that their anti-cop BS that they have been spewing for years is done? It's finished. No one's buying it anymore. You can worship at the altar of St. George Floyd all you want, but people are done with your garbage. No one's reading this. I'm going to read some of this to this audience because I know that they're not going to read it for themselves because they shouldn't. I'm taking the hit on this one, okay? It's part of what we do. It's part of the services that we provide to the audience. But, of course, anything involving more police cannot be the answer for the Kansas City Star and so many of their ilk. It can't possibly be the answer. When it seems very obvious, if you have law enforcement patrolling certain parts of Kansas City as a deterrent to those looking to commit property crimes, look at Betty Ray's Ice Cream in River Market. They've been hit, 2-3 times in the last few months? This can be good for them. Why would you not want this? So what direction do they take on this whole thing? What do they decide to talk about? Well, they decide to say, well, this may be just a short-term solution. Really? Yeah, I know. We need more cops. That's definitely a problem. But a short-term solution is better than no solution last time I checked, John.
Well, they're also fond of saying we've got to do something.
Yeah.
Right.
But then if it's more cops, no.
Not that something.
Not that something. Yeah. I don't know about that. We can't be doing that. That wouldn't be a good thing. A Kansas City lawyer, they write, specializing in personal injury and civil rights cases, said while she feels an initiative to protect small businesses is a good idea, the city should be transparent about the off-duty officers' policies and procedures. Attorney Peyton Denning reviewed the ordinance at the request of the Star. Among other litigation involving law enforcement, she has represented clients in excessive force cases involving off-duty officers. I just think the public, she said, I don't think it's as black and white as, there's going to be more police and they're going to deter property crimes. It's a more complex issue than that. Of course. Let's find the attorney who's going to ruin something that makes all the sense in the world. The city actually said we will invest in off-duty officers to help deter property crimes. And the lawyers are going to get theirs because, sadly, in too many cases, they always do, right? But if you're going to live a life in fear, if you're going to run a city in fear of attorneys, in fear of people trying to make a buck, then you're never going to accomplish anything worth a damn. I'm sorry, you're not. I will ask Mayor Lucas about this when he comes on the show. I hope he stands up emphatically for this ordinance. I hope he doesn't put on his lawyer's hat. I hope he just says this is common sense. And if we can hire off-duty cops to help our small businesses, we are going to do it. You cannot live in fear. You cannot live paralyzed by the what-ifs of the world. I know that's how attorneys live. I know that attorneys want to live in a world where they just don't want to be wrong. But sometimes you got to have some balls and look out for your small businesses and do what is right. Because if not, this city is going to be hollowed out more and more every single year as people flee. Whether it's property crimes, whether it's violent crimes, whether it's homeless encampments that are popping up all over town. We had Jasper Mirable on from Jasper's Restaurant this week. He's got homeless shelters popping up down by him in South KC off State Line Road, and it always happens this time of year. And he's made it clear, Pete, I could go to Leawood in a heartbeat. I don't want to. This is where my father started the business. This is where we belong. But the people who run this town continue to give him a reason to leave and continue to push him out and tell business owners who are paying a lot in taxes that we really don't care about you. Well, guess what? It's going to destroy the city. It's the same old advice I've given for a long time. The best thing that anybody running this town can do, or any business owners in this town can do, is not listen to the alleged newspaper of record in the town. It's really that simple. And when their first instinct on an ordinance like this, when it comes to trying to solve or at least alleviate the property crime issue with law enforcement, with cops, is to say, I don't know. Those guys, those cops, I don't know about those guys. When that's their initial knee-jerk reaction, well, you know you're doing something right. That's what you know.
Hear, hear.
6:27. Thank you, John. I didn't need any coffee today. I'm all worked up before 6:30, man. It's good. It's good. The early bird gets the worm. If you got the early bird this morning, I'm glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio. 913-408-7957. Especially if you're a small business in town, your reaction as we roll through the 6 o'clock hour. And local Indians are fighting back against the Trump administration. We'll tell you why coming up. Haskell is the center of more controversy here. We'll get to coming up in a minute on KCMO Talk Radio. Good morning, 634. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM. First, we got to give a shout out to Mark. Mark has to run home. His wife left her keys in his car. So Mark is hitting the road. John's at the controls. And we'll see how this goes over the next half hour or so. Hopefully we're all here at 7:15. We should be all right. That's the over-under on Mark's return. 7. I say he's going to be back by about 7:10. That's my guess. Poor guy. So just take it easy on John if you're calling in over the next 40 minutes. He's pulling double duty this morning. But that's what we do around here. That's what we do here on KCMO Talk Radio. There you go. You're hitting the right buttons, John. Nice job. Nice job, man. You got it. You're good.
I'm driving now. Now I'm looking out the windshield.
Yeah, now you're right in the driver's seat there. Well done, man. So at Haskell, this is the university out there in Lawrence that has about 900 students that it serves. They represent about 150 tribal nations, and they are a public tribal land-grant university right there in Lawrence, in case you don't know their background. So they had to cut a couple dozen staffers during Trump's executive orders in the last few weeks. Why? Well, because obviously part of the DOGE cuts included probationary employees. Those are employees who had been there for a year or less. And unfortunately, that resulted in a couple dozen people losing their jobs. It sucks. I mean, you feel for anybody who loses a job. There's no perfect way to do this, but you have to do something. We are in an untenable situation. We are running a $2 trillion deficit. Actually, we're on pace this year. It came out yesterday for a $2.7 trillion deficit this year. That's what we are pacing towards about 5 months in to the federal government's fiscal year. It's insane. So we don't have a choice. I hate it for Haskell. There's no reason that they are targeted outside of the fact that they are a federally run college. I mean, that's what they are. So that's why they were part of this. Haskell is the nation's only 4-year university for Native Americans operated directly by the federal government. But cuts had to be made. There's no easy way to do it. When you have turned your back on the deficit, on the budget for this long, to get it back under control, there just has to be some broad cuts made, and it's going to result in people who are probably good employees getting cut. But I'm sorry, this has to be done. There is no choice. But now you have this lawsuit that's been filed, and it's been filed in part by students at Haskell. And, of course, Channel 41, Woke 41, was on it. And let's play their report.
I'm KSHB 41's Douglas County beat reporter Lily O'Shea-Becker. I caught up with a Haskell freshman who is suing the Trump administration after about a quarter of the university's employees were part of federal layoffs in February.
Speaking on behalf of Indian country, we feel as if we're just not important.
Indigenous education is important to Ella Bowen. That's why she chose to go to Haskell Indian Nations University.
I'd really love to go back home on the reservation and teach for my people.
Ella is one of 4 Haskell students, in addition to 3 tribal nations, suing the Trump administration.
What's the end game here?
Justice.
The tribal nations allege in the lawsuit they were not consulted before more than 30 employees were laid off, which they say current law requires the federal government to do.
We're ready to fight for what's ours, and we're not scared of going against the government anymore. It's really time to get justice for our people.
Last week, a spokesperson for Kansas Senator Jerry Moran told KSHB 41 the Department of Interior said it intends to hire back 14 of the terminated employees.
We want our staff and faculty back here on campus.
Ella is still without her academic advisor.
That has really left me clueless as to what my next steps in my education were.
And she said the layoffs have impacted her education.
One of my professors, he had to take up extra classes. So I know he's had to make sacrifices here and there, and it cuts into my class.
But Ella's not giving up.
I'm really dedicated to Haskell, and this is why I'm fighting so hard, is because this is where I want to receive my 4-year degree. This is where I want to send my kids to in the future.
Reporting in Lawrence, Lily O'Shea-Becker, KSHB 41 News.
All right, that from Woke 41 last night. So there's a couple things here as I listened and watched that last night that I thought to myself. One, as we've said with every single story of this kind, whether it's IRS workers, whether it's USDA employees, whether it's a professor at Haskell, I feel for anyone who loses a job. I really do. But you tell me how you can possibly try in a quick, efficient, and smooth way to get this thing under control, get this insane federal deficit under control without, yes, some good people probably doing good work losing their jobs. I mean, heck, you had arguably the most successful guy in Kansas City radio lose his job last week in the last 30 years, right? In Johnny Dare. That seems inherently ridiculous when you think about this medium, that show, the success, everything else. But as much as it sucks, it happens. Now, in that case, probably a big mistake, because I would imagine that that show was still bringing a lot of money to the company, but whatever. They made a choice. When you're talking about a deficit of $2 trillion, you don't have the time, frankly, to sit there and go through line item by line item by line item, every single employee. There are 2 million of them around the country, and say, stay, go, stay, go. Sometimes when you come in, you got to just say to yourself, hey, we've got new people in charge here, and the quickest way to try to get this thing somewhat under control is to say, if you're somewhat new to this job, you're going to be the first ones to go. Last in, first out. It happens in business all the time. Now, they did note that they're bringing back, 14 employees, according to the Department of Interior. So I would view that as a pretty big win. I would say, okay, they realize that we need some of these people. They're bringing them back. The big thing that you want to see happen from any business is that when they screw up, they right their wrongs. And if you're going to hire back about half the people, John, that seems pretty damn good to me.
I agree with you there. A lot of schools, even KU, K-State, they can get funding from other places, I guess, from alumni. It's unfortunate. Haskell has its purpose, but it's unfortunate it's all federally funded. Now, the next thing I question is, 30 people on probationary? That means they've been there less than a year? That suggests a turnover. Perhaps there's another issue that needs to be addressed above this.
Well, that is a great point. It's not a big school. It's 900 students. So if you've got turnover of 30 employees who are probationary employees, meaning they've been there less than a year, are people coming in for a hot minute, cup of coffee, and leaving? That's what it sounds like to me. On the text line, Pete, perhaps the other option is the federal government gets out of funding the university. I'm fine with that, too. I don't know if the state has any role in that. I don't know if the state would want to have any role in that. Where else could you get the funding from? I don't know. But yeah, in a perfect world, of course, I would love that. The government probably feels some obligation on that front, but that's a fair point on the text line. 913-408-7957. That's a good one. Pete, Woke 41 has a Douglas County beat reporter, which means every time they need some wokeness, ... Yeah. They don't need to go that far, but it is good for them, I'm sure, to have that option available. There's no doubt about it. That's a great point on the text line. Also on the text line, Pete, please make it make sense. Ella said she wanted to go back and teach her tribe, but also without her advisor, she doesn't know what to do. Make it make sense. She's a freshman in college. I'm not going to sit here and rag on a freshman in college. All right, she got some TV time. She sounded pretty good, actually. I'll just let that one be. All right?
I don't really recall following my faculty advisors' stuff that much. I mean, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. Maybe I was just fortunate.
Well, that's a good point. I couldn't name my faculty advisor. I don't know who it is. Dennis is in Bonner Springs. What's up, D?
Hey, bud. You said 900 students. Google, which Google's totally truthful, says 165 employees. That's 5.45 employees per pupil.
Yes.
That's all I got.
Yep. I don't know off the top of my head how that compares to other colleges. I don't. But that's a good point. Let me see here. Haskell employed 146 faculty with 900 students, give or take. Well, 727 students as of 22. Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty high to me. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be the expert on that. But yeah, I mean, to use that ratio, you're right. I'm glad you brought that up, Dennis. That's a good point. Oh, I got some hot breaking news for you here. I didn't think I'd be going down this road, but here we are at 7:05 on a busy Thursday morning. Mayor Lucas in a half hour. Booty juice for Prez. Mayor Pete Buttigieg, former transportation secretary, had a big focus on DEI during his time there and apparently nothing else, like not interested in hiring air traffic controllers, but just making sure that DEI quotas are met. He is not going to run for Senate next year in Michigan. Instead, according to Politico, it is because he is clearing a path for a potential presidential campaign instead. Woo! Oh, my gosh! I know, that's my reaction. Just laugh. I just put this up on X because I saw the report here from Politico. I'm genuinely asking, like even Democrats, what makes the guy qualified? And do it without bringing up Trump. If you can do it without bringing up Trump, first off, Trump, we know, was an outsider and a successful person in business and had thought about this and considered this for a generation. But what makes this man at all qualified to be the president of the United States? The mayor of South Bend, Indiana, 1/5 the size of Kansas City. It's a college town run by Notre Dame. Then he runs for president because, well, why not? He ends up hoodwinking enough people to do okay in the primaries. Biden gives him a cushy gig as transportation secretary. There's nothing that you can point to that suggests the transportation department was better when he left than when he started. And now he thinks he can be president of the United States. You need people in your life that are going to shoot it to you straight. That can be a spouse. That can be a close friend. That can be a family member. But someone has got to call out your BS. If you don't have somebody who calls out your BS, it's a dangerous path to go down personally and professionally. And clearly, Sweet Pete doesn't have that. And man, does he desperately need it. Because for this guy to even think that he can be president of the United States is such an insult to common sense. Oh, my gosh. But that's the report this morning in the last couple of minutes from Politico. Just breaking. Wow.
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
All right, that's going to be good. Can't wait for that on KCMO Talk Radio. Wow, that'll be an absolute doozy, John.
Well, if I were the mayor of Independence, Missouri, I'd think about running too, then, because Independence, Missouri is bigger than South Bend, Indiana.
Who is the mayor of Independence? Oh, that's right.
Rowland.
Rory Rowland.
Yeah.
He's been on the show once or twice, I think.
Yep.
No offense to Rory. I just forgot about him. But to your point there, John, it's
He's driving a bigger bus than Pete did.
He is driving a bus. Oh, my gosh. Wow. Okay, there you go. Well, let me tie it into this then. I had this lined up for later this morning, but I'm going to tie it all together right now. Gavin Newsom's doing this podcast because he wants to run for president. And have you seen who he's put on the podcast? It's been all diehard, not just like conservatives, some of the most MAGA people out there. He's put on Charlie Kirk. That was his first guest. He had on Michael Savage, longtime talk radio host. And then he had on Steve Bannon. Why would Gavin Newsom do this? The reason Gavin Newsom would do this is because he wants to moderate himself and wants to run for president. That's why he's doing this. And I will say this much. Gavin Newsom is very talented. Gavin Newsom is super slick. And Gavin Newsom knows exactly what he is doing. This is not just Gavin Newsom actually trying to open his eyes up to anything or anybody. This is all part of a plan. And it's a very well thought out, carefully coordinated, and brilliant plan. I'm going to talk to not just like conservatives. I'm going to talk to some of the people that are most involved in Donald Trump's inner circle. And I'm going to have them on my podcast. And I watched some more of one of his conversations with Charlie Kirk the other day, and I couldn't help but sit there and think to myself, man, this guy cannot be underestimated. This clip stood out to me above the rest. Remember when Gavin Newsom, as governor of California during COVID, like shut down the whole state, and then he was caught eating dinner at this restaurant called the French Laundry, one of the most high-end, exclusive, hoity-toity, fancy restaurants apparently in the entire country. I had never heard of the place until, of course, that story came out. But Gavin Newsom was dining indoors without his mask at this restaurant, the French Laundry, when his entire state was being shut down. And, man, he looked awful. He was the biggest hypocrite in the country at that point. And it was kind of, for some people, an eye-opening moment where it was like, wait, you mean these politicians don't believe this crap? That if you wear your mask into a restaurant and then you sit down and take it off and then you eat and then you leave and you put your little mask on when you walk out of the restaurant, anyone's being saved here? We're like accomplishing anything at all? That, I think, for some people was a red pill moment. So Charlie Kirk brings that up. And listen to how Newsom completely disarms the situation. It was really well done.
About your whining and dining at French Laundry.
Yes, I was talking about the importance of never. I can't help you with a reservation.
I get such a kick out of this whole shtick. I got to be honest. So
Jesus, very nice. By the way, we couldn't have this conversation with that conversation. Dumbest bonehead move of my life. Okay, own it, move on, grow up. And I'm trying to.
Is that you talking to yourself?
That's me talking to myself.
Okay.
I'm looking right at you in the eyes as I say that, just to get your reaction. That said,
he's good, man. He's really good. He brings it up. He disarms Charlie Kirk. He doesn't dig in. He backs off of it. He makes fun of himself. See, this is where politics has not been over the last 10 years. And it started with, I would say, Obama, and then Trump continued it, where politicians never apologized. But like everything in politics, in fashion, in style, in life, the pendulum goes back and forth, right? Gavin Newsom, I believe, is ushering in a moment here where politicians, it will soon be in vogue for politicians to suddenly say, you know what, I had that wrong. I screwed that up. We've lived a decade now where Republicans and Democrats across the board do not ever apologize. They never admit they're wrong. And I have found that to largely be just a turnoff, regardless of who you are. It's like, I don't care if you're a politician and you think I need to double down. You were wrong. Just admit it. Just own it. Newsom is zigging while everyone else is zagging, and it's very smart to do. And he's laying the foundation for his own presidential run. And that moment right there, which was one of the biggest PR issues, if not the biggest PR issue outside of the fires that he's had over the last few years, he took Charlie Kirk with a smile on his face. He disarmed it. He conceded. He joked about it, and he neutralized it all with a smile on his face. That's what Gavin Newsom just did right there. And the reason he's doing that, first off, he's training to run for president by talking to these people. That's what he's doing. He's preparing for that run by talking to Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon. That's what he's doing. It's smart. It's really smart. And you know what? It just might work. Do not discount this guy, because he is going to spend the next 3-4 years remaking his image, making himself out to be a moderate, despite the fact that the guy has overseen the most progressive policies in California's history. But he's going to hope that that's a distant memory, and he works the charm game very well. And now by working the podcast network, he's setting himself up for that. 7:15, it is good to be here. Great to be here on a Thursday. Mayor Lucas is 20 minutes away. We've got a lot to dive into with the mayor on. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, from yes, the Big 12 tournament, its future, to how to use off-duty cops effectively going forward, the Kansas City Stars' criticism of that, and much more on 95.7 FM. So that's a great story by Bill O'Reilly. I just want to add to that real quick and share with you that if you didn't know this about Columbia University, half of their enrollment is now foreign students. Some are people like this guy, Mohammed Khalil, who spent all his time agitating in support of Hamas, terrorists. But if you actually dig deeper, the story is even more appalling when you think about it, because Columbia is using the prestige of its elite undergraduate school to bring in thousands of, in many cases, mediocre foreigners who want a Columbia degree in computer science, engineering, whatever it might be, and they get to charge them full freight. They pay full freight tuition. It boosts their bottom line, and it hurts the job market for American citizens. And it also lowers wages for STEM workers. So why we're letting one of America's premier universities do this? Become a far-left factory for foreigners? Well, we certainly shouldn't be funding it. So when Trump took $400 million away from Columbia last week, I was cheering that on. And we should all be cheering that stuff on. Why would we send our tax dollars to a university that is basically becoming a university for foreign students? It's not educating American citizens. I mean, the whole point would be to educate American citizens and give opportunities to young people through your scholarship program and your multi-billion-dollar endowment to people who otherwise may not have a chance. It's not just about American students who could pay the full freight. What about like the J.D. Vances of the world? Could J.D. Vance get into Yale today with his story? Or would it not be sufficiently woke for a place like Yale? White guy, Appalachia, who needs him? Things have changed dramatically on that front over the last couple of decades, and it has not been good for the American worker or the American citizen. This news breaking here this hour. Man, there's a lot changing this morning here on KCMO. Donald Trump just putting up a Truth Social post that has spooked the markets in the pre-trading hour. He writes here a few minutes ago, the European Union, one of the most hostile and abusive taxing and tariffing authorities in the world, which was formed for the sole purpose of taking advantage of the United States, has just put a nasty 50% tariff on whiskey. If this tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wines, champagnes, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU-represented countries. This will be great for the wine and champagne business in the United States. That from President Trump here in the last couple of minutes. So here we go again, right? I mean, it's back and forth. It's up and down. It's left and right. You can't keep up with all of it. I mean, we try to our best, but it's hard to keep up with all of it. What do I think the end game is here? I think the end game is very simple. Trump is saying, whatever you hit us with, we're going to hit you with back. Right now, he's obviously saying, you hit us with X, we're going to hit you with X plus. That's what he's doing. But I think the end game is to simply say, how can we get the freest and fairest trade possible? Whether that's with Canada, Mexico, or the EU. That's the end game here. That's what he's trying to accomplish. And he knows that with the United States being obviously the biggest consumer market for all of these countries in the world, he's taking a risk here. He's taking a chance. I don't love it inherently, but I understand the goal. I understand that there is, yes, a pro-America side of all this. And it's not like in the case of the wine coming from Europe, it's not about moving any of this to the U.S. for U.S. jobs. That's impossible, right? European wine is European wine. Italian wine, French wine, whatever. You're not bringing those jobs to the U.S. But it's simply saying, hey, we will buy your wine, we will buy your champagne, but we also want you to buy our stuff, and we just think that those tariffs should be reciprocal. In a perfect world, none of us are tariffing other countries. They're not tariffing us, we're not tariffing them. But his thought, it's all about the deal, right? That's what it's about. His thought is, if these countries are going to make money by tariffing us because they know that we are going to consume their product, then why can't that be reciprocated? It wouldn't be nearly as much money for us as it is for them because we consume far more of, the rest of the world than they do of us in large part, especially with consumer-based goods. But at least it's a way to say, hey, if we can make a little bit of coin out of all this, why shouldn't we do that when you guys have been doing this for years? That's the approach. How's it end? That remains to be seen, obviously.